Guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between, and at the end of the video, we talk about the viewer's pick of the week, so in the comments below, let me know your pick of the week for a chance to be featured. Now let's jump in. I had a pretty heavy haul with 14 books, and number 14 is Summer Shadows, issue 1. A pretty big price tag for how long this book is. It's about $6, a bit of a shiny cover. And I wanted to like this one. It's a queer story, a queer breakup story. I'm like, okay, that's something that we normally don't get to see in comics. It's usually just a romance story. And it has a little bit of a looming mystery in the background with this town or the city. But overall, I couldn't really get into the characters. Like, I like the idea of the breakup, but there wasn't anything for me that hooked me. I didn't love the art. I feel like it could have had a bit of a darker palette when it came to it being a mystery book. So overall, giving it 2 stars. Wanted to like it more than I did. Moving on to number 13, which is Absolute Power Task Force issue 6. And this is like Task Force 7. This has to do with Wonder Woman. I've picked up a few of these, and every single time I do, I'm like, why did I pick it up? And I kind of felt the same way here. I don't really think it adds that much to the story. It doesn't add that much to Wonder Woman until the last page where they're like, hey, here's Steve. He might be working for Amanda Waller. Let's pick that up when we get to Wonder Woman. So it's like, okay, you're just selling me another book that I already do buy. So overall, I thought the artwork was strong for this one, but I didn't really love the story. So giving that 2 stars, and that is number 13. Moving on to number 12, which is The Amazing Spider-Man, issue 57. We are getting closer and closer to the end of this Zeb Wells run, and the tension is just not there. I don't love John Romita Jr.'s art. There's even this double-page spread where a train crashes into this car, and the crash, the SFX, was more powerful than the actual artwork if you really look into the art. So honestly, I thought that could be stronger. You know, the story itself, Tombstone, cool character. I like his relationship with his daughter, but there's just no tension. It doesn't feel like we're leading into a finale. It just kind of feels like it's spinning its wheels. So overall, giving that one 2 stars, and that is number 12. All right, moving on to number 11, which is a book I was actually pretty excited to read, and that is Dead Eyes, The Empty Frames, issue 1. This book has not come out in a long time, honestly. It's been years since that first volume came out. So to have this issue kind of just jump into that story again, I wish they explained why this character was so interesting in the first place. And for me, it was that anti-hero element. It really was that this human guy is trying to do better, and he's doing it in shady ways. And that doesn't really build through here. You get a little bit of his relationship with his ex-wife. I don't remember if they're divorced or not, but with his love interest. And that's kind of it. And that's the only emotional standpoint here. And the rest is just a heist, kind of, where these paintings were stolen. And now he's like, I'll help you out. I want the money from that. And it just kind of feels like your run-of-the-mill story. I like the first volume enough that I want to try out issue 2, but this one didn't do it as much as that previous volume did. And I do think they need to explain a little bit more because it has been so much time since that previous volume. So giving that 2 stars, and that is number 11. Moving on to number 10, sad to see this low as well, and that's Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider, issue 5. It's interesting when you read issue 1, and honestly when you read this in trade, I'm sure it's going to feel a little jarring. Issue 1 had a lot to do with the TVA, her adjusting to this world. Here, it's her helping Chameleon and being like, ooh, that vermin, that character's weird. I don't have that in Earth 65. And that's kind of it in the issue. Chameleon ends up being somewhat an okay guy in this issue, but it's honestly pretty forgettable. The artwork is solid enough. I like the darker tone for the book. Going to the TVA to this, it just doesn't really feel like it has its theme set like I would want with Gwen. Either a story arc or just a villain. I don't think either here. I guess the arc being that she's trapped in this world and that's a mystery, but we don't exactly know why she can't go back to her world. There just feels like there's a lot of loose ends that needs to be progressed in this book. So overall, giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 10. Moving on to number 9, which is Avengers Assemble, issue 1. I liked it. I feel like the artwork could have been a little stronger, especially the coloring felt very orange, but I love seeing these characters that we just normally don't get to see. You got to see Shang-Chi, we have Julie Power, who's one of my favorite heroes, and they're just hanging out as Avengers. That's kind of all I needed for this issue. Is the villain the strongest person in the world? No. Was there the best character moments? No. But it was just kind of a fun new view, honestly. I just like seeing these characters playing poker with each other, and I want to see where it goes. I think the book does have promise. So overall, giving that one 3 stars, and that is number 9. Moving on to number 8, which is weird to see this next because Avengers Assemble, I think I am going to pick up the next issue, but Wolverine, which is the book, I'm not sure if I will, but the reason this is a little higher is I thought the artwork was stronger. The reason I might not pick this up is because I'm reading so many X-Men titles. I'm reading no Avengers titles, so it's kind of easier to say, I'll pick up this next issue. And because Julie Power is in it, it's a little easier for me to say, like, oh, I don't have a Julie book, I'll read it. Wolverine, on the other hand, you have the Uncanny X-Men book that came out, which almost contradicts what happens in this issue where he's a loner here, he's not part of the X-Men, and then he is part of the X-Men Uncanny. This one's a little harder to pick up because it just feels like the same thing that we've been getting. He's a loner, he's in the woods, he's fighting this guy who has, I think, vibranium on him, kind of looks like Colossus. That's the issue. The stronger elements here, obviously, is the action, and also Nightcrawler. I liked when he interacted with Nightcrawler, but that's not promised to be in every issue. This is a Wolverine series. So because I'm reading so much X-Men, I don't know if I'll get issue 2, but I'm glad I tried it. I just don't feel like there was a unique enough hook or voice for this one. So giving that 3 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7, which is Primer Clashing Colors issue 3, a fun all ages book. It's interesting because it is so big though. Like as an all ages book, I kind of wish they just released more volumes. I'm guessing kids, they don't have as much of an attention span to read this whole series in one sitting. And even for me, reading the amount of books I had, I thought it was a little long-winded for a kid's book, but there's some things that get resolved quickly, but overall, I like this story a lot, and I like where it's going. There's some good action moments. She has the potential to join the Teen Titans. There's an interesting cliffhanger with her mom actually being alive, what that's going to mean for her foster parents and her life. So I always like that they're kind of building this world and building this character where I'm like, wow, I can't wait until that next volume. Even if some of the follow through is not the greatest, like the way Ravager's character is like, yes, I'll help you. We are friends. I thought was a little quick, but I liked it. I thought it had good action, and I think this is a really great all ages book. So giving that 3 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, a little lower than usual, and then Shazam issue 15. I feel like this issue was a stepping stone, a point A to point B to where this had to go, which is going to be very interesting, where finally we get to see Billy get his powers back and Freddy. That's really what the whole issue is about, is like, how do they get their powers? Now they have their powers. Great. Artwork is amazing for this book. It's just some fun action in between. I like to see where this goes now that we have the trio who have their powers again. I love this series. I just think this is a weaker addition to this series. So giving that 3 stars, and then is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Toxic Summer issue 3, a really, really fun romp comedy where we get to see these 2 boys are being affected by this mutant monster. They realize maybe if they didn't get their nose into it, everything would have been fine, and then they do have the summer they've all been waiting for. Derek Charm's artwork works so well for this. It's, again, a pretty simple story about mutants and summers and teenage love, but it's just fun. It's a really quick book, and I want to see more. Honestly, I think this would be even better as a continuation of a miniseries or an ongoing. I think there's a lot of story here that I do wish was fleshed out a little bit in this issue, like the potential romance and these friendships, but overall, I still had a really good time with this one. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, the last issue of Batman and Robin for this creative team. The next creative team is going to be taking it over. So Joshua Williamson, I think, put his stamp on Robin. Have him just being a kid a little bit more, him realizing his emotions a little bit more, and we get a little bit more of his father and his relationship there. Honestly, I like the intercuts more than the action, though, where we get to see Damian as Bane. I was like, that's not as interesting, especially because I didn't think the art was strong enough for those sections, but I like the moments where he's just talking to his therapist and he's like, you know what, I am loved, I enjoy my life, I want to grow as a person. You know, is it the strongest stamp on this 2-year plus journey for Joshua Williamson? I don't know, but I think it was fun enough, and for a volume that I do think started to dip a little bit, and I am curious to see what another creator will do with Damian and his father. So giving that 3.5 stars, and then number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is the Uncanny X-Men issue 2. Our topic of the video, was this better than issue 1. I do think issue 1 was a little bit stronger because you get those emotional beats between the characters you know and love, like Rogue and Wolverine and Gambit. But what I liked about this issue was learning a little bit more about those new kids. Like that blonde girl who's not a mutant, I think is a super interesting story they could tell. I wasn't sure about the Charles Xavier story. I don't know where that's going. Feels a little bit disconnected, but I'm sure if you read it as a whole, it will make all sense. I love the artwork here. There's a lot of action. I love how the trio do react to these new mutants and their responsibility to be X-Men again. I thought it was a good point A to point B issue, but it does suffer that second issue slump. But I think recovers a little bit because you have the promise of like, here's these mysterious characters. Don't you want to learn a bit about them? And it gives you just enough to be like, yeah, I want to see their stories. I want to see that unravel. And also that monster at the end I thought was really cool. Like, oh, what are they going to do? That's going to be kind of like a cool horror spin as issues go on. And again, the artwork is just blow your mind crazy with Dave Marquez. So that makes up for a little bit of a slump. So overall giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Green Lantern issue 15. I think this book does as good of a job as it can as a tie in Absolute Power. But I hate how it's forced to tie in Absolute Power, because the things I enjoy more was, Carol figuring out she's a hero, Hal using that Batwing thing. But the elements where it's like we have to tie in Absolute Power slows things down a bit. It's also not the artist we usually get for Green Lantern, so I thought that was a bit of a step down. But I like the story a lot. I really like where Carol's going in particular. I'm curious to see what her relationship's going to be with Hal as she's also discovering who she is as a Star Sapphire. I don't know if I love the wording and all of that, because again, it does have to be a little rushed of her discovery of wanting to be a hero. And I hope the other issues in the future takes the time a little bit about her inner monologue and figuring out a little bit more about Carol. But I liked it. I love this series, and I'm excited for Absolute Power to be over. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, Red Before Black, issue 2. This is a book that keeps sneaking up in my top 5. It's honestly an ambiance thing for sure, where you just get a lot of meat from the characters unexpectedly, I would say. It feels very seamless. It's not very exposition dump, where we get to see that she was in jail and how she got to this moment of working with the CIA or FBI, and now that she's getting a little bit of trouble because she's getting down and dirty in this world, and there's this other character that might be causing trouble too, and I like their relationship. I like their dynamic. The cliffhanger was a little weird. I don't know exactly where they ended up when she got stabbed. I'm like, is this mystical? Is it just because she got stabbed? I'm sure the next issue we're going to find out. But the artwork is so good with character acting, and it just sucks me in, which is why it was easy to give this as number 1. And it was a good follow-up to a first issue that also introduced the characters well enough where you're like, I'm interested to see where they go. And it's a slow burn, but you, again, don't notice the slow burn. So I like that about the book. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 1. And let me know in the comments below what your favorite book was. And the viewer's pick of the week last week was Exceptional X-Men, and here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.